since I was a kid, my brother took me to the temple. I go to Buddhist Sunday school. The only thing that I have a monkey mind. So when I sit, it's like beans and needle mosquito. So now I have all the online apps where it's instructional mode. It's just that I could not go into the alpha zone. But I just keep doing it every morning and then just fall asleep, or every night and then just fall asleep. So how do I correct myself? Thank you.
Am I right in thinking you're saying sleepiness is your main problem? Sleep?
Yeah, my mind is like a monkey chattering. It just I tried at once. I successfully noted one thought and another thought started, and then I just lost that. So it's kind of like everybody say they are in peace. They see this, they see that. Even I try to breathe. My solar plexus is in pain. So even I breathe deep. So I just breathe naturally. So I'm kind of like keep on doing, but if I keep on doing something that is not right, it's not going to help me. But anyway, I just listen to instruction. There are a lot of online apps, simple 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes, and there's one that says you are home. I like to go home and I feel peace there, but it's like you do 100 times, you get it once.
Well, I would suggest just trying a few different approaches. See if you can find something that holds your attention when you meditate. So if you're sitting meditation and your mind is all over the place, restless, you could try walking meditation, even in a room, walking mindfully, backwards and forwards, putting attention on the feeling of the feet, and maybe reciting Buddho. You could try that. So you can walk very slowly if you've only got a limited space to walk. So right foot down, Buddho, left foot down, Buddho, right foot, Buddho, from one wall or one corner to the other corner or the other wall, slowly backwards, forwards, back and forth, Buddho, Buddho, Buddho. As many people in the beginning of their sitting meditation experience, they find their mind is very restless. It won't stay still. They're all over the place. They think a lot and then often end up falling asleep at the end. So some walking meditation can interrupt that process, and it gives you more to focus on. When you're walking, it's hard to fall asleep. And the movement and the recitation of Buddho absorbs a lot of that energy that would normally just be spent with the scattered, distracted thinking. So many people have found this very useful, especially in the beginning of their meditation experience, learning to walk meditation alternately with the sitting. So sit for a period of time and then get up and do the walking for a period of time, and then when you finish the walking, you come back and sit. Another one you could experiment with is chanting, the sort of Pali and English translated chants that we do. You might find on our website, our chanting book, or other centers will have them as well. And when you begin your meditation, begin with a period of chanting in Pali or English or both, for a period of time, again, to concentrate your mind on the words. When you're chanting, it's very difficult for you to get distracted, because if you become distracted by other thoughts, you won't hear the words coming out of your mouth because your mindfulness is gone. You'll stop chanting. So it's a very straightforward and direct way to bring up mindfulness in the present moment, is to recite a chant from start to finish without losing awareness through that whole chant. You have to complete that chant, and you can chant long sutras or short reflections, a number of things together, and you'll find after a period of, say, 20 minutes chanting or 30 minutes chanting, or some people even do an hour chanting, it's up to you, you'll be much more mindful than when you began. And again, it's hard to fall asleep, it's hard to get distracted because of the chanting. So in conjunction with your sitting meditation, try some chanting and some walking meditation. And you might find you have a much better overall experience as you're developing your meditation.
Thank you, Ajahn. Let's notice about Bhavani, choose Sattva and meet. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Please excuse my ignorance. It is all about brain and mind. So whenever I think about some sensations, means I feel like they're passing through nerves, spinal cord, and reach the brain. And is brain and mind are same or different?
Is brain and mind the same or different? Is that the question? Well, I'm not a scientist or a medical doctor, but from my understanding of what the Buddha taught and my own experience, body and mind are two parts of the whole, the human being. What we call Rupa Dhamma refers to all the physical elements in the body, and then Nama Dhamma is the mental elements. And the brain is something physical. It's something you can, if you say you were to do an autopsy on a corpse, you can cut open a skull and see the human brain, or in a picture, in a book, or on a computer screen. You can see the brain is an organ that's in the body. It's physical. Whereas the mind is harder to pin down, isn't it? You can't really see the mind. You can only see reflections of the mind. So this is why we practice mindfulness of breathing. Is one reason is because it gives you a link between the mind that knows and the physical element of the air, the breath. It's an element, a physical element. So when you're paying attention to the breath, you can see your mind with the breath and get to know your mind because it's with the breath. Or when it's not with the breath, you can see you have no mindfulness, no awareness. So the more you practice mindfulness of the body, mindfulness directed to the body, whether it's the air element in the breath or any other aspect of the body, there are three other main elements: fire element, or temperature, the water element, and then physical earth element. These four elements, you can pay attention to any of them, or the 32 parts of the body as well. And by paying attention, recollecting them in a very direct way through the practice of mindfulness of body, or one part of the body, you also are becoming aware of the mind at the same time. And you'll start to see there is a separation between the mind that knows, that quality of knowing, and the physical body that is known, and they're not the same thing. And the more deeply you go into this practice, you'll probably have some kind of awareness or experience where you're seeing the separation between the mind and the body. And a lot of our meditation and understanding that comes from meditation is like this. You start to break down your human person into these different component parts. There's physical body, feelings, memories, thoughts, sense consciousness. And the more mindfulness you have and the more wisdom that's coming from your practice, you're seeing these things are different component parts of this thing we call a human being, which is really a sum total of component parts. And it's a process, an ongoing process from moment to moment of different conditions, causes and conditions arising, affecting each other, interacting, passing away. And one of the insights is that mind is one thing, body is another. And they're not exactly the same. They're linked, they're related. There can be causal conditions for each other, but they're not the same thing. And that's why we can train the mind. Like if it was just the brain, if the mind was the brain alone, then brain damage, you could get brain damage, and then the mind would be damaged as well. But we know from what we know, a well-trained human mind, even though the body may be degenerating through aging or illness, going towards its death, the human mind doesn't have to degenerate. Say the mind of an arahant or an Aryapugala has attained certain qualities and understandings and experience that don't degenerate. even if the brain was to degenerate through illness, aging, illness or accident, injury, the qualities of the mind wouldn't degenerate. So those qualities are our real treasure, our real wealth. Say the mindfulness, the wisdom, all the different good qualities that we develop in the practice are not found, ultimately, they're not found in the brain, they're found in the mind, and the mind is separate from the brain.
Thank you, Tan Ajahn. Can I please invite Rekha to start a video and unmute?
Hi, good evening, Tan Ajahn. Could you hear me?
Yes?
Thank you. I have a question. How do I manage dislike against someone because of my attachment to how someone should be? I find it is not easy to let go, even though I know that I have some wrong view or I'm attached to it. But I do not know how to apply the Dharma, so how I can help myself overcome this attachment. Please advise. Thank you.
Well, I think that's a very common experience. The people who tend to be bringing us the most suffering are the ones we attach to the most. So often it's family, close friends who we see a lot of, and we do build up expectations, hopes, based on our relationship to those people, our attachment to those people. And so when things happen that are not to our liking, not what we want, well, then we often get stressed about those people or about our relationships with those people. So the Buddhist path is always looking at ways to reduce and end stress and suffering from oneself and others. So the more you practice and the more awareness and mindfulness you bring up, well, this will also be a supportive cause for understanding and wisdom to arise. And wisdom in Buddhism means the understanding that helps to free our mind from suffering. So as you become more aware and you see this relationship and my way of looking at this person and what they do, what they say, and my reactions that come up are where suffering is arising, you'll start to adjust because you don't want to be stressed, you don't want to be with suffering. So the more you notice what is causing you suffering and what you need to adjust to end the suffering, the more you'll want to do that. So as you practice, you become more aware of your own mind's reactions to things, and maybe it's expectations. You want someone else that you love or you know to be a certain way, but then they're not, they don't behave in the way you want or like. So you get angry, but as you become more aware, you're realizing that really the thing you can do something about is here in your own heart, your own feeling, your own reaction, your own negative thinking, your own anger. That's something you can affect for the better. You can change. You can see that anger is suffering. You can have more mindfulness, more awareness, and then start to relax the attachment or the expectation on somebody else that is causing you this anger, or that is linked into the causal chain of you experiencing anger and angry feelings. Now you can maybe be more mindful and say, well, the angry feeling is my feeling, it's not their feeling. The angry thoughts associated with this feeling are my feeling, it's not their feeling. This is what I must become aware of. And it may mean you have to bring up also a lot more metta and karuna, kindness and compassion, to counter the habit of always going to anger and negativity. You have to bring up more mindfulness, more metta, and start to relax this obsession with other people and what they're doing and what we think about them, and start to look and take more care of our own mind and see really if we can look after our own mind, be more mindful, let go of the anger, we'll be happier. Our relations with that person should improve over time. Things will get better, but we're starting from looking after our own mind as the starting point, rather than trying to change them or always thinking about them, letting our mind go out to dwell and think about other people all the time. We're coming back to look at our own reactions and taking responsibility for them.
Thank you, Tan Ajahn. So for the last question, could I please invite Dean to unmute?
Thank you, Ajahn. During meditation, my attention, sometimes I experience a very quiet moment, and it could be a few breaths or a short period. I want to ask, is this also my thought? And can you advise from here how should I proceed? There are moments of stillness. I'm just not sure whether it's an achievement or it's my thought. So if you can advise me what to proceed in terms of progress and practice. I hope it's clear, Ajahn. Thank you.
Well, priority is keep practicing regularly. Keep putting effort into bringing up mindfulness, setting up periods of time where you can practice formal meditation is very good. But even in the course of your day, bring up mindfulness. When you've got a few moments, turn to the breath. Or practice mindful walking as you're walking from one place to another during your day. And you will notice there are times when your mind settles down and all the distracting thoughts, impingements, disturbances do disappear for a while. You'll notice there are periods where your mind is calm. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you will notice that, and the more those moments will arise. And that is one of the benefits. You do start to feel more calm, more relaxed within yourself. You may also notice those benefits flow on to your relations with other people, because they see if you're more mindful, you're more calm, more relaxed, more aware, you become more sensitive to other people, well, your relationships with them will tend to improve, get less irritated, less angry, you express less stress in your behavior. There will be those moments. But you also have to be prepared for the fact that as you practice more mindfulness, you'll also notice the moments when you are stressed more clearly. You'll notice them, whereas before you might not even have realized how stressed you were. Now you're practicing mindfulness, they will notice, oh, today I'm really irritated, today I feel really awful, oh, today I'm really agitated and excited, expecting something to happen. All kinds of different experiences will now become more clear to you. So you have to have that patience and the good attitude, the wise attitude that, okay, there will be the good moments where I feel more calm, more in control, more mindful, but there'll also be the moments where my mind is clearly out of control and I'm caught into an emotion and my mind is racing, thinking many things. So you have to accept that. But just realize the very awareness that my mind is not peaceful, my mind is thinking a lot, is already progress in the path, because now you're seeing it. Before you might not have realized it at all. And what we tend to do is blame meditation and say, oh, before I meditated, I never had all these stressful states and agitation and whatever, which is probably not correct. It's just you didn't know them before. You didn't notice them, you didn't see them. Now you're seeing them. But don't blame the meditation. You're just seeing what's there, and your mind is opening up to the bigger picture. So that's progress. And you will sometimes be peaceful, sometimes not. You just have to accept that. Keep practicing, keep developing the mindfulness, patiently putting effort into your practice. All of that will become wisdom and understanding over time, and you'll understand yourself better. And most people who practice meditation find that over a longer period of time, they can look back and say, yeah, now I'm more peaceful than before. I lose my temper less. I worry about things less. I'm less caught into obsessive desires, always wanting things that I haven't got. Most people find their mind does improve, and they can say that it's more peaceful than before. So trust in that, trust in the process, and just keep doing it. The more you do it, the more benefit you'll have.
I'm conscious it's very late for you, Dhamma. We have one last question. We take this last question. Megan, please. Megan Lin from Malaysia.
Thank you, Long, for the talk. I found it interesting when you spoke earlier about how we shouldn't categorize our life Dhamma and Adhamma. And I had a recent conversation with a friend regarding livelihood. Two issues, especially doing livelihood that deals with sales. So, of course, more sales, more revenue equals to more income. But there's an increasing in sales and inciting people to buy more, or are we in a way doing something wholesome because the incite more greed in them? And the second issue that my friend mentioned is sometimes in a company a product may not be really good, but the company may just mark up the price and push for the sales of it. Do we just turn a blind eye because, especially in this pandemic situation, we want everybody else and our own self to keep the job, so do we just turn a blind eye to it, and is it unwholesome in a way? I'd like to see Ajahn advice.
Yeah, I sympathize with you. I think many people are in this sort of position. As we know, our society is a consumer-based society. We're always producing things, products and services to sell. We have to advertise them, make them sound really good so they sell better, so we make more revenue, like you say. That's the way the economy works mostly. It's working like that. So as a Buddhist practitioner, listening to the teachings, thinking about them, reflecting on them, well, you try and introduce them into your daily life and take responsibility at least for yourself. So if your company and the policy of your company is to overstate the case for a product, talk it up, make it sound better than it is, that's not your decision. Maybe that's other people have made that decision. Okay, you have to accept at the moment I'm working in this company, they've decided to do that. I don't agree with it, so be clear on that. I don't want to do that, but they've made the decision. Other people higher up the chain maybe have made that decision. So just accept it in that sense because it's their decision, and try your best to just speak in a reasonable, honest way when you have to do your part of that job. Try to be as honest as you can, but within the limits of the situation. If you may one day reach a point where you decide, I just can't do this anymore because I don't feel comfortable selling a product that's not, they're specifying or making it sound better than it is, or they're being a bit dishonest. Maybe one day you reach the point is I can't do this anymore, and you do leave that job. It may happen. But for the moment, you also have to have a practical approach. Like you say, you need a job, you've got to earn money. So you're there, you've been there maybe for many years, I don't know, but you're there. So you do the best within your own personal area of your own duties, your own responsibilities within that job, to be as honest and true to yourself and your own principles that you've got from Buddhism as you can. You do the best that you can. So you're not deliberately trying to undermine the company or complain or find fault with the company. You're aware maybe they're not 100% accurate or honest in the way they portray the products, but you personally try to still be honest in your speech and just do your job the best you can within that situation. As I said, you can look forward to one day you will leave that job, whether it's through retirement or move into another job, another area. That will happen as well. And there may be some room for thinking about, well, what is my life plan now? How many years do I want to do this job? What do I want to do next? You may want to look into that. I don't know exactly your situation, but people do make these kind of decisions partly based on their Buddhist practice, and they decide, my company is just, I don't feel comfortable with this. That may be the case. Or you may feel that it's just reasonable within the realms of the economy, buying and selling products. You have to advertise a product. You have to say, well, you're not the one creating those advertisements. You're not the one doing that, talking that is a bit dishonest. You just leave it to other people. If that's their decision, they're going to do that, well, they'll have to accept the karma for that. And you try and do your own job the best you can in the most honest way that you can.
I know that I've said it's the last question, but someone's just raised their hand. Do you want us to take this one final last question?
Yeah.
Right, Kanchi, please. Kanchi, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, Longpo, thank you very much for the Dhamma talk. Yeah, I have one question that is regarding perception. Whenever the mind comes in contact with an object at the sense doors, the perception automatically arises, and then a thought is, as a result of that, a thought comes. So this cause and conditions is always going on all the time during our wakeful hours. Not so much during the formal sitting, but during our daily activity. Sometimes these thoughts are unwholesome. So when it's unwholesome, we feel like dreadful. So quickly abandon the thought or just be aware of it, understanding it that it is due to causes and conditions. Question is how do we reduce the perception going forward? This perception is due to past conditioning, memories, and knowledge, our upbringing and so forth. And most of the time, it actually is a hindrance and it creates a lot of wrong thoughts.
It sounds like you already understand the problem quite well, and I would imagine that's partly from listening to a lot of Dhamma, which is good. This is the value of listening to the Dhamma. It reminds us to look at our experience, and the Buddha has given lots of tools and clues how to look at our experience with more wisdom and understanding. So you're right, we've collected a whole baggage worth of perceptions from our birth and from our youth up to the present day. The Buddha gave us some simple guidelines. He said, well, some of the main wrong perceptions we get caught into are that we see things that are impermanent as permanent, and we look on them, we perceive them in that way, and that deludes us and causes us problems. And then things that are inherently dukkha, stressful, suffering, we perceive as sukha, happiness, pleasure, and so we keep grasping and chasing after pleasures that are actually dukkha and going to cause us some pain. And then we have the perception that things that are actually inherently not self, anatta, we see as self, mine, belonging to me, I own them. Those are the three main wrong perceptions we get caught into all the time. We're seeing impermanent things as permanent, we're seeing things that are dukkha as sukha, and things that are not self we see as self. So they're like tools we can use to investigate our experience more and more and realize, a lot of these pleasures I chase after, they're not actually they don't give me any lasting pleasure. They actually are temporary, and often they turn into painful experiences as well. And they're not mine, they're not me, they're not mine, they're not a self, they're just, like you say, causes, conditions arising, say mental states, feelings, thoughts, pleasures arising and then passing away. So they're impermanent, they're suffering, they're not self. So re-educating your mind, using mindfulness and investigation to see where perceptions are constantly tricking us. And so do a lot of questioning of your own perceptions. In a mindful, gentle kind of way, question what I believe about this, my view, is it true? Is it correct? Do I need this pleasure to really be happy, or can I do without it? So some of our practice is the practice of renunciation, letting go. So like when you keep 5 precepts or 8 precepts, you're seeing this. Like when I first started practicing 5 precepts, I still had the thought, oh, alcohol brings me pleasure, social pleasure, and I feel good. Oh, so it's part of my life. This is something good. I'm used to it. I'll have it. But then when I started meditating, keeping precepts, reflecting on this, I realized that perception is wrong. Alcohol causes me suffering. It causes me physical suffering. I have to spend money on it. It makes my behavior a little bit sloppy. You're not mindful in your speech or actions. So very quickly after practicing meditation, my perception changed, and I saw alcohol is no longer sukha. I now see it as dukkha, and I gave it up, and I've never gone back to it. That's just one example. So we're constantly investigating the truth of our perceptions, the perceptions we hold, and some of them will be more accurate and helpful, and some of them will be very deluding and causing us trouble, and we have to keep looking at that. And those perceptions will change as we become more mindful and aware of the way things are.
Thank you very much, Paul. We'll come to the end of our session this evening. We know it's very late for you, and I'm very grateful that you spent this Sunday evening with us today.
Very happy to help, and see you again next week.